Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited and honored to have Senator Cory Booker joining us this morning to talk about his groundbreaking animal welfare initiatives. Before we turn this over to Senator Booker, I wanted to quickly introduce you and thank our wonderful co-host panelists and tell you a little bit about all of us. So for starters, my name is Peter Nussbaum. I'm the co-founder of Tamerlaine Sanctuary and Preserve. We are a sanctuary for abused, abandoned, neglected farm animals. We're located up at the tippy top of New Jersey in Montague, up in Sussex County. And our sanctuary is home presently to just over 200 animals. And their sole job here, coming to us from situations of really bad situations, is just to live their best life in an enriched and safe environment that we provide. And a big part of our humane outreach, the biggest part, is enabling the public to connect with these animals, to make the connection by looking into their eyes and seeing these animals for what they really are, and that is no different than their beloved pets, their dogs and cats at home. And so we do that through virtual tours, predominantly during the past 5 months, of course, but we also do it via public tours before COVID and certainly after COVID. And we welcome you all to come and visit the farm. Just real quickly, the farm is situated on a historic 336-acre property that has a history of social justice. It was a stop on the Underground Railroad. And we're very honored and proud to carry on the tradition of doing good work at this property. We also have with us Brad Finkel, who is the owner of Hoboken Farms, a company, New Jersey-based company that does all of the farmer markets in New Jersey, 25 some odd farmers markets a week, and is getting food to people, including their amazing vegan tomato sauce line. And we love Brad. We also have Matt Marshall, a lifelong New Jerseyite who is one of the administrators of the amazing group Vegans of New York, which is comprised of thousands of vegan people in the tri-state area. And Matt and Vegans of New York have been great supporters of Tamerlaine. We couldn't survive without their support. They're wonderful, and thank you, Matt, for everything. We also have Kendra Arnold, who most people who are vegan in New Jersey know Kendra. For the last bunch of years, she's been putting on amazing veg fests and vegan pop-ups and shop-ups all over the place. And I think she also holds the distinction of being Senator Booker's #1 fan. So we love Kendra. And last but not least, we have Lisa Fontaine, the CEO of an organization, St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center, that is near and dear to our hearts. They have done more in terms of sheltering and placement and lobbying and education for animals in this state than anyone that I know of, and we're grateful to have them on with us. Let's get right to the reason why I know all of you signed in. For the last couple of decades, I have had, my day job is located in Essex County, right outside of Newark. And as a result of that, I've had the privilege of hearing Senator Booker speak countless times when he was the mayor of Newark as a senator. And I can state unequivocally that there is nobody, the takeaway every time I hear this man speak is that there is nobody who has a more important, powerful, meaningful, sincere message. And I always have a warm feeling in my heart whenever I hear the senator speak. And he gives me hope, not just with respect to animals, which is what we're talking about today, but in general. And the fact that he's on our team, the fact that he's fighting side by side with us for animals is beyond the best. So Senator Booker, thank you so much. Take it away.
Peter, it's I who should thank you, and I'm so grateful for this invitation. In my circles of friends, people seem to be most excited about this conversation we're having today, and I'm grateful to be in community with you. And I don't overstate this. You and Gabby are heroes of mine. What you all are doing, the light, the energy, the compassion, the love that you bring in a society right now that we so desperately need it. So I just want you to know everything that you all are doing at Tamerlaine is powerfully speaks to my heart. And I'm hoping as awareness grows about how, as Martin Luther King said so eloquently, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that doesn't just mean amongst humans, that literally our lives are dependent upon and connected to what we are doing at colossal scales right now on the planet Earth, never before seen in human history, what we're doing through corporate industrial animal agriculture. And so you all are on the front line, heroes in that way. And I'm just so grateful for everything that you do. And to the partner organizations that work with you, some represented on this call, supporters, volunteers, shelters, animal lovers, and of course, the tribe of vegans that are on as well. I really just say namaste to you. I see your spirit, I see your dignity, I see your divinity, and how you are manifesting that through all that you're doing. I want to speak specifically, if I can, in my introductory remarks. I know we'll get to a conversation, but just about how I feel that so many of the crises we're talking about right now, from an economic crisis, racial, a reckoning, a pandemic, so many of the things that we are talking about right now are connected to our relationship with our food and how we produce food in America. Our nation's food policy is savagely broken. It's broken for the farmers and producers. I've traveled this country and New Jersey talking to so many of our farmers and seeing the state of what's going on with farmer suicides at an astonishing level, and the independent family farmer being driven out of business by corporate consolidation. We are seeing this broken food system with the massive amounts of food insecurity all around our country. We're seeing the way that animals are being treated in horrific conditions that would shock the consciousness of our country if the corporate producers weren't going to such great lengths to shield us from knowing how so much of the food is being produced. And so for me, this is a national urgency. We are in a state of crisis with our very globe's destiny in the balance. And we are, unfortunately, as taxpayers, participating in this system. We are pouring massive federal subsidies into a system that's literally making us sick, threatening our lives. Diabetes, heart disease, childhood obesity, climate change, and more are threatening our water supply. All of this are really plaguing our nation in ways that previous generations have never seen, in order to make cheap, unhealthy foods that have my neighborhood where my kids can go to the local bodega and find a Twinkie product cheaper than an apple because of these corporate massive federal subsidies. And the insecurity of food, which I see all over our state in all of our counties. We now have an estimated 14 million of our children who are not getting enough to eat on a daily basis in the richest nation in the world. 30 to 40% of the food supply in this country is going to waste, and 14 million children, again, going to bed hungry. And we know along racial lines, it's disproportionately Black and brown kids. And so our food system is broken for so many reasons. And it clearly, as is lived by so many on this call, we know it's broken for farm animals, with billions of animals, billions every year, being treated with such immense cruelty that does not align with our larger society values, that is forcing people to look away, and having many states trying to do such gag laws that prevent people from seeing the horrors, binding First Amendment rights to even speak about what is really going on. And it's not a dramatization in any way to say that we produce and consume food in this country in a way that is a matter of life and death. It's that way for workers in this system, as we see many workers risking their lives to get food on their plates. They are being crowded into meat packing plants that have become hotbeds for COVID-19. And we still know that Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, which was written about the horrors of the corporate concentration and treatment of workers, we now have less corporate diversity. There are now fewer companies in control of that market, putting people in these high-risk conditions, and even in the pandemic, lobbying the government and winning the chance to speed up line speeds. This corporate consolidation is so much worse today than it was a century ago. And I've been fighting to try to bring light to that. In fact, I've been working with the only farmer in the Senate, a guy named John Tester, extraordinary a man who is a dear friend. We introduced the Agribusiness Merger Moratorium Act to try to halt this hyper consolidation in our food system that is driving independent family farmers, better stewards of our lands, out of business as these massive corporate run vertically integrated businesses are taking over with their large CAFOs and their destruction of the land and soil and water and the horrific treatment of animals. Multinational corporations are taking over the American food supply and often perverting government decisions, as we saw during this COVID process with meatpacking industries, where they were just upping their profits as they were upping their exports to overseas nations like China. And so last year, I just reached out to people and got this amazing coalition of people who believe in animal welfare, people who are focused on the environment, with people who are focused on farming and protecting independent farmers. All of us came together to cooperate on what I have introduced now with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and others all joining me now on this bill, the Farm Systems Reform Act. I'm excited that this bill would place an immediate moratorium on new and expanding large CAFOs and phase out by 2040 these largest CAFOs in our country. The bill would hold corporate integrators responsible for the horrific amounts of pollution and other harms that are being caused by those CAFOs. Having visited those communities and talked with families who live around them, literally not being able to open their windows, to run their air conditioning, to put their clothing on the line, as those spray fields where they spray the refuse as polluting their air and causing them respiratory conditions and diseases. And then finally, it focuses on those farmers who are so often trapped in these systems where they live in near sharecropper status, being forced to abide by the growing conditions for their animals that are a violation of how they used to operate farms in the past, but they're stuck so much in debt that we provide in our bill voluntary buyouts for farmers who want to transition out of operating CAFOs into more sustainable farming. Scientists and public health professionals have talked about this, telling us clearly that because of the high concentrations of animals, the terrible conditions inside factory farms, there is a serious risk that this can be the source of the next pandemic, that we could be breeding superbugs, that because of our overuse in the animal industry, more than half of the antibiotics we use are prophylactic antibiotics being used, injected into animals. Because of that, we are breeding the potential for antibiotic resistant drugs that could cause massive pandemics, killing so many lives across this country and in ours. This is an issue where we have to focus on for also consumer protection, fiscal responsibility, public health, animal welfare. All of these issues are interconnected, as King talked about us being caught in that inescapable network of mutuality, tied in that common garment of destiny. But ultimately, it speaks to the character of our nation. What is the quality of our mercy? What is the depth of our compassion? How we treat animals, in fact, is a reflection of our character and a measure of our souls. From ending the expansion of CAFOs to working to ban cosmetic testing, I'm grateful that I can stand with you in this work. You all embody the light and the love that we need. I told the folks I was late today because I was being interviewed about Senator Kamala Harris for a cable show. And I just said, it is time that we in this nation have a revival of civic grace and show at the core of our country that we are kind and decent. And remember that patriotism is love of country, and you cannot love your country unless you love each other and all living things, because truly our lives depend upon the strength of our love. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yet again, you blow me away with your words. Thank you so much. So meaningful. And we have time, hopefully, for some quick questions. So Brad Finkel from Hoboken Farms.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Brad. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. My question concerns local municipal farm markets and the overall funding and organizing for direct marketing of New Jersey ad and boutique food producers, much like our neighbors have successfully done in New York State, Pennsylvania, and Vermont. We know that one of the best ways for small independent farms to remain viable is to have access to direct consumer sales through local municipal farmers markets. And now more than ever, by the governor's definition, we are quote unquote essential. Are there currently any programs that can help finance, market, and organize these types of organizations?
First of all, Brad, not only thank you for your question, but thank you for the work that you do. Our local farms are vital to our state, and they need to expand. We have these broken food systems, which I've outlined, but one of the most revealing things we saw was that in one part of our country, you saw massive pits being dug where everything from potatoes to produce were being poured into it, not meant to mention the mass slaughter of animals, but yet you have people in communities like ours, because our food systems aren't local, they're not resilient, really struggling. And the Farm Bill, in which we've made creeping progress, but it's inadequate, we've been able to start to get some streams, minor streams, to support local farming and local produce. It's just not enough, as our Farm Bill still gives billions of dollars. 90% of our ag subsidies go to 4 monocrops, not the diversity of food that we actually consume. In fact, the crops that they're subsidizing are the very crops that another part of government tells us to be eating less of, less sugar, for example. And so we've got to do something to change this. And it's, again, the reason why I'm working so hard to build diverse coalitions of everybody from animal activists to environmentalists to farmers, is to really try to get the political power to fight back on one of the biggest lobbies there is in Washington, which is big ag. And so one of the bills that I'm pushing and introduced, again, written with a lot of the help of local leaders, is the Local Farm Act, to provide relief to the organizations and businesses that make up that local food system. If we can win this, your question in the streams of resources, we could really win a lot more resources. And so the bill, just to give you a little bit of detail, it provides grants to states to award food assistance organizations and other entities focused on primarily marketing locally grown food to procure and distribute to those people who are demanding it and in need. And it creates more help for small and mid-sized retailers to help them with doing things like accepting SNAP online, which would open up even more of an urban farm base. And so we have work to do, and this bill would provide hundreds of millions of dollars to local agricultural market program, which is another program with $100 million dedicated to serve historically underserved producers and more. And then the final part of it is it would give microloans of, again, $100 million available for microloans that would help to source these farms. And so when I was the mayor of the city of Newark, we knew we had a crisis with just the city being a massive food desert. And we took local action to get farmers markets here in Newark, to create local urban farms, taking like an entire city block and turning it into a farm producing thousands of pounds of food. And we saw the vibrancy that came from that. Also, the community we created at local farmers markets, and even just the participation in our local farms. We had prison reentry programs helping ex-offenders come back and get jobs on those farms. It had a multiplier of effects and benefits. And so one of the things I'm going to be asking for help from the people on this call is not just to support the legislation I'm pushing, but that ag bill, that big bill that passes every 5 years and it's coming up again, will come up again in perhaps in the next Congress. We got to start building a coalition of people that are going to begin to demand that we change that ag bill and stop this corporate giveaways and welfare, and begin to source the things that not just help local farming systems, but actually help to create a multiplier effect of health and well-being for our communities. And I'm hoping that many people on this call will join me in that fight, because I want to take this fight in a way that they've never seen before, because I think we can get more and more Americans who can realize, especially in this disastrous pandemic, how urgent the local food movement really is.
Thank you very much. Senator, I join the voices that thank you for your incredible leadership in this movement, and you've been a real ray of hope for us in what have been some dark times in animal welfare recently, but we're very hopeful about the days ahead. And in our organization, we span from Washington, D.C. to northern New Jersey, and we directly care for about 120,000 animals a year, farm animals, companion animals, and wildlife. I want to focus my question, though, on companion animal issues. Our movement in companion animal welfare has mostly focused in the last years around ending overpopulation, expanding adoption, and ending euthanasia. But we're making a pivot right now, and I think it has to do with the civic grace that you talk about, where we realize that animals are family, and animals are family to everybody. There should not be barriers to having an animal, and it should not be a privilege. It should be an opportunity for all. And I am watching the pending eviction crisis with nausea in my stomach. I'm looking at the possibility that 40 million Americans could be evicted and become homeless. And we know that about 2/3 of them have at least one animal. And so that means perhaps 27 million Americans are looking at losing a family member if they're evicted and they can't keep their pet. And I don't feel like we can stand by and watch that happen. The animal sheltering system is ready to take in animals, but we don't want to have to. We don't want to. We want them to stay with their families. And so I'm wondering if you have any suggestions about what we can do to face this coming eviction crisis, how Congress might provide some leadership and help so that those families can stay together.
Your question's really moving to me because it's like you're standing on a beach and watching a tsunami wave come at you. So in New Jersey, we have about 40% of New Jersey renters. Just think about that. 40% of our state's renters have reported that they're not going to be able to make next month's rent. And it is a colossal failure for the richest nation on the planet to have that many people facing homelessness. And it should stagger and sober us all. And as you said, it has a multiplier of impact. It's going to affect children's education. It's going to affect the physical health of people. It is going to crash people's credit and make it even harder for them to find a way to dig out of that. There's so many impacts, and I love the circles of empathy that you have that expand not only to the people, but also to the animals, the companion animals that they have. And so I'm really in one of these moments in my life where I just almost can't believe that, months ago we did a CARES Act that was, a stimulus act that was worth $2 trillion when we thought that the size of this problem was like this, but now we've seen that the size of the problem is much bigger than we anticipated, with a huge hit to our GDP, historic hit to it, with more and more Americans, even today, close to another 1 million Americans filing for unemployment insurance for the first time. It follows, so many weeks in a row where we've seen over 1 million Americans filing for unemployment. And so if we don't get something done in Washington about this, we could see a catastrophes in our country that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And so the moratorium on evictions ended in July at the federal level. If we did the HEROES Act that the House passed months ago, it would have extended it for another year. And now the debates is going on in Washington and trying to get to the table. And I just wish I could be more optimistic. I've had hours of conversations with Chuck Schumer and colleagues this week about the posture of the White House and the posture of Mitch McConnell, and it's just not promising about us being able to get to the table and hash something out. 18,000 people, I think, in New Jersey filed, had evictions filed against them since March. But that number, as I said before, could go up to hundreds and hundreds of thousands if people begin missing rental payments. And so the one thing I would ask for everybody on this call, and I know we have sort of New Jersey and tri-state area folks, but we've got to get people to be aware of this problem and be demanding that this country does something about it. It would be such deep shame, shameful, if we allowed that many Americans to tumble out of their homes, out of their apartments, and into homelessness or double and tripling up with family members in unsafe conditions. So thank you for the question. And I'm telling you right now, with every fiber of my being, I'm going to be fighting to win this battle. And I don't mean to be political on a non-political call, but to let everybody know that January is, that November, frankly, is really a moral moment in our country. And I've already talked to Joe Biden directly about the need, should we have a change in leadership, to come in with a very big economic package in January right away. But I know between now and then, we have very rough days ahead of us and for our country, very challenging days indeed.
Kendra? Unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay, I did it. Okay. I'm so excited to talk to you, Senator Booker.
Kendra, you are one of my favorite New Jersey light workers. I missed Veg Fest this year. I didn't get to come down to Asbury Park.
I miss it too. I can't wait till this is over and we can get back to it.
I know my problem is I follow like so many vegan Instagram accounts, and my girlfriend, I forgive me for saying it this way, but she goes, Cory, stop sending me all your food porn pictures.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly sharing with her things. And my question is always, can we make this at home? Can we make this at home?
Yeah, you can make it at home. But we took just aside, we took all of our vendors from the New Jersey Veg Fest and we opened an online market.
Oh.
So we'll make sure we'll follow you on Instagram and let you know how you can order it delivered to your house.
I really want to do that. But I want to tell you about a massive breakthrough I had, even though I literally sliced my finger as I was doing it.
Cool.
But I learned how to make an Alfredo sauce at home. It was so much easier than I thought. I'm such an incompetent cook, so I know there's people laughing at me out there. But I really wish I could have had you over. Somebody who was giving me such culinary delights. I was really proud of what I did.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Sorry about your finger.
Thank you. There's casualties along the way.
Yeah. So I have a question about being in the middle of this pandemic and what it seems like the USDA is kind of loosening a lot of regulations and safety things at meatpacking plants. And I'm just wondering how that's affecting the animals and the people, and what else are they doing that we should be worried about right now?
My mom always told me that worry is like a rocking chair. You go back and forth, and you don't make any progress. But I do want to just like be very candid with you that there are a lot of decisions going on right now that are putting animals and humans in danger. The meatpacking industry is one. I gave an example where like you were wondering, why is this president not invoking the Defense Production Act to get PPE out? But he so quickly moved to get it for meatpacking plants. And one of the reasons is he wanted to protect those meatpacking plants from liability. Because what they do is when they do that, they give them the shield of the Defense Production Act, and they lessen the ability for people in unsafe working conditions to have legal standing against those companies that are putting them and their families at such risk. And so they're cutting all kind of corners they can right now. And again, this is the big corporate consolidation going on in America. Is not just in the food industry, it's in the pharma industry, it's drugstore. I can go through all the things it's affecting. We since the 1980s, in the time of Bork, corporate power has gotten so large, it's corrupting our politics. Literally, they were able to win through Citizens United the ability to pour even more dark corporate money into our political system. It's one of the reasons why when I was running for president, even years before president, I made an announcement that I was going to take the End Citizens United pledge and stop taking any corporate PAC dollars, and making sure that I wasn't taking, pharmaceutical C-suite dollars, oil company dollars, all of this stuff, because our system is becoming so inundated with it. And a lot of the actors we look to in politics have relationships now that make you want to question the severity. So the corporate power has grown immensely. In the animal industry, that's even bigger. and it's hurting, as I said, consumers, it's hurting farmers, it's hurting animals, it's hurting workers. And so, you know, I've been trying to be one of those voices that calls out and tries to elevate these injustices, like line speeds, that the Trump administration through the USDA is allowed to go further and faster. But remember, the EPA, one of the things when I was grilling the first administrator of the EPA about, because he in his state had done so much to continue to allow the phosphorus rates in the rivers that lead into the Mississippi, and ultimately have created the biggest dead zone in I think one of the bigger dead zones on the planet Earth, in the Gulf, where nothing grows anymore because of the incredible dumping of these massive, I've seen them, pictures of the massive mounds of animal feces, just dumping them into our rivers. And that is so polluting. And these are the kind of things that when he became EPA director, literally allowing corporations to help write regulation changes. And so this is just going to build. And with 80 days left, I'm just worried about every day that goes by, relaxing of rules or relaxing of oversight, taking shortcuts, using a pandemic like we've seen in many countries, especially totalitarian nations, as an excuse to undermine basic human rights and protections. So I guess I'm trying to say, let's turn our worry, which we should have, into work. Let's get our outrage, let our outrage sort of get us out working on this issue, because so much is at stake right now, as this administration has shown no concern for the environment, no concern for animals, no concern for independent family farmers, no concern for workers. And the conditions and the realities now are intolerable, and it's motivating me every day in this election season.
Thank you.
So, Senator, we know that you're extremely busy, and we're grateful that you took all this time out of your busy day. Do you have time for one more question?
I was late, so definitely I have time for a question. I'll take time.
Fantastic. So, Matt Marshall from Vegans of New York, all you.
Now, Matt,
thank you.
Yes. Come on, Vegans of New York, you got some New Jersey members. Can you give us any deference? It's like the Giants. It's like the Giants and the Jets. They play in Jersey, but they don't even allow us to have any Jersey on their name. Come on.
I agree. We'll table that. We'll table that at the next meeting.
What is your favorite vegan dining spot in the New York City, one of the boroughs? I'll give you mine if you give me yours.
All right, it's not fully vegan. They told me the other day that they're 95% vegan. Of course, I only eat vegan there, but Superiority Burger in the East Village. I love them.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to try that.
They have an amazing fried tofu sandwich, but it's only on Monday nights. So check that out.
And I don't follow them on Instagram. I'm gonna have to do that. My recommendation for you is a place I take all my non-vegan friends when I want to blow their minds. Is Champ's Diner in Brooklyn. It's unbelievable. And they have a great Instagram page too for me to drool over. My phone is, I have to clean it over.
Yes, I follow them. My question is more on a grassroots level. You mentioned building a coalition. What are the ways that the people on this call can help you build support on a more like widespread basis all across the country? Everyone here backs the Farm System Reform Act. We care about the Local Farm Act, but the rest of the country may not. How can we help you build support for that?
So I guess what I want to say is now that John Lewis has passed and we've all done a re-examination of his life, I just want to challenge everybody on this call to understand that we have to do more than we're doing now. We're all activists on this call. We have to find ways to get in more good trouble. We have to find ways to better prick the consciousness of our country. We know the best activists have always been able to do things that got comfortable people uncomfortable. Alice Paul, that great New Jerseyan, who was the first person arrested in front of the White House for the suffrage movement, went on a hunger strike. This is before Gandhi, where she was, eventually they tortured her. They force-fed her, sticking tubes down her throat to make her eat, but to bring more attention. We know the marchers in Birmingham, the children that stood up to Bull Connor. All of these things help to elevate the understanding. And so my question for everybody, my request to everybody, first of all, the better lines of communication that we all have, because after this election, I know I got 80 days. I got to get reelected, got to work hard, but I want to do things creatively with my position to help get more understanding about the urgency. But I want to work in partnership with the activists here. I want to try to bring more attention to your organization. So we should figure out how, on my platforms, I should make them, we got to be better organized, better together in this fight. And I commit to you that that's one way I'm going to get better, is to figure out what we can do more of. And then the last thing I'll just say is maybe to inspire you, because sometimes it's discouraging, a lot of the things we see. I always say, if America hasn't broken your heart, then you don't love her enough. And when you see what's often going on in these massive CAFOs, when they sneak in a camera, if you see farmers losing their farms to bankruptcy, if you see children who don't have access to fresh and healthy foods, and what it means to their physical health, which then affects their education and more, these are heartbreaking realities, millions of stories all around our country. But I want to affirm to you that we are each powerful to make a difference. And when in 1969, I became a New Jerseyan at like 4 months old, because my family moved up from the South, and they were trying to move into a neighborhood with the best, highest rated public schools. But every time a black family would show up in these white neighborhoods, they would be turned away from their housing and told the house is sold or pulled off the market. So my parents found this group of local activists, white folks and black folks, Jewish, Christian, they were just meeting in a small little group. And they said, we're going to try to help you. And they set up a sting operation where my parents would go to look at a house and they would be turned away because of the color of their skin. And a volunteer white couple pretending like they were homeowners would go right behind, home buyers would go right behind them, find out the house was still for sale. In the house I grew up in, my parents were told it was sold. The white couple put a bid on the house. They won the bid. On the day of the closing, my father showed up with a volunteer lawyer, and unfortunately they were attacked. The real estate agent punched the lawyer in the face. They sicked the dog on my dad. And every time my dad would tell this story to me as a kid growing up, he'd be like, boy, I had to fight a pack of wolves to get you in this house. You better appreciate what you have. But I eventually became a United States Senator decades later. And I decided to do what a lot of senators do who have a high sense of self-regard. I decided to write a book. And I went to go back. I'm embarrassed to tell you, I'd never gone back to talk to many of the people that were involved in helping my family move in. So I found this white guy who was the guy that developed the sting operation, was the main lawyer, named Arthur Lespin, a retired New Jersey judge. And I had this amazing conversation with him. He blew my mind when I asked him my final question. And I said, well, tell me, why would you spend so much time helping black families move here into Bergen County? Like, I don't understand it. Like, you were busy, you had a business to run, you were at the start of your career, barely making ends meet. And he goes, Cory, it's simple. I remember I made the decision on March 7th, 1965. And I'm like, what was happening on March 7th, 1965? He goes, well, I was just comfortable on my couch watching TV. And it was a movie that most of America was watching that night called Judgment at Nuremberg. And suddenly they pull away from the movie to show breaking news on a bridge in Alabama called the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And he's shocked to see these marchers get viciously beaten. It's Bloody Sunday. And he gets up and his first instinct is to go to Alabama, but he can't afford a ticket. He can't close his business. And so he just sits there and says, what can I do in a moral moment in my country? Well, I'm just going to do the best I can with what I have where I am. And he calculates that he can afford 1 hour a week more of pro bono work. He calls around to see who needs a little legal help, finds this group of people, and they're like, yeah, we need help. And he helps them design a sting operation. He tells me 4 years later, he gets a case file handed to him of a family in distress, trying to find a home, but kept getting turned away. And he goes, Cory, we got that family into our house. He goes, you know their names? I go, no. He goes, well, the names on the case file were Carrie and Carolyn Booker, your parents. I am literally sitting here today because one comfortable man on a couch, one white guy in the 1960s, didn't allow his inability to do everything to undermine his determination to do something more in a moral moment in his country. He got up off that couch and set into motion what got me to the United States Senate. And so I just want all of us to know, even if it's just an hour a week more, what we do can change the outcome for generations yet unborn. What we do could save lives, could end injustice. What we do together, united, I tell you, the power of the people in a democracy are always greater than the people in power. And so I commit to you to being a better partner, better ally, better friend. And if we can deepen our connections, deepen our commitment, and all do a little bit more in the last of this year and in 2021, we are going to have bigger victories together. We will awaken the moral imagination of this country. We will get folk off the couch and get them to be a part of creating some good trouble that ultimately will yield a greater nation.
Thank you so much, Senator. We're very, very lucky to have you, and thanks for taking the time today. This was incredible. Thank you for the panelists, and thank you for everyone who checked in. And we're gonna have this recorded and available, so everyone enjoy the rest of the day, and so long.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.